The desert wind carried memories across 60 years, like dust across stone. Jonas Riddick sat on his porch in the fading light of a New Mexico evening, his great-grandson Thomas beside him, studying the old man's weathered face with the intensity only 16-year-olds possess when they sense a story worth hearing. Thomas's eyes had caught on the scar. It was impossible to miss, really. A long, pale line that traced from Jonas's ribs up toward his shoulder, visible where his shirt hung open in the heat. The kind of scar that spoke of violence survived, of a knife or claw that had come close to ending everything. "Grandpa," Thomas said, his voice carrying that mix of curiosity and reverence the young save for the very old. "Where'd you get that scar?" Jonas touched the mark without thinking, his fingers finding the ridge of old tissue with the ease of long habit. His eyes went distant, looking past the ranch, past the desert, into a time when the world was younger and he was a different man entirely. "That's from the day I stopped running from life," Jonas said, his voice still strong despite his 97 years. "The day an Apache woman taught me what strength really means. The day a bear trap changed everything." Thomas leaned forward. "Tell me." Jonas smiled, the expression crinkling his face into 1,000 lines earned through decades of laughter and tears. "It's a long story, boy. About honor. About love that comes when you stop looking for it. About choosing to stay when every instinct tells you to run." "I've got time," Thomas said. The old man nodded slowly. "Then I'll tell you, but you have to understand, this isn't just a story about how I met your great-grandmother. It's about the moment I learned that surviving isn't the same as living. That being strong doesn't mean being alone. That sometimes the trap that catches you is exactly where you're meant to be." He closed his eyes, and the years fell away like leaves in autumn wind. September 1878. The Arizona Territory stretched wild and untamed, a landscape where ponderosa pines gave way to red rock canyons, where the line between civilization and wilderness was drawn in blood more often than ink. Jonas Riddick moved through this country like a ghost, checking his trap line along Oak Creek with the patient efficiency of a man who had learned to survive alone. He was 37 years old then, though the mountains had aged him beyond his years. His buckskin jacket hung soft against his frame, worn smooth by wind and weather. The Springfield rifle across his back was Army surplus, same as the man carrying it. A tomahawk rode at his belt beside a hunting knife that had tasted more game than he cared to count. His hair fell past his shoulders, dark brown shot through with premature gray. His beard covered most of his face, hiding whatever expression might have lived there. The forest sounds were familiar, wind through pine needles, the distant call of a jay, the rustle of small things in the underbrush. Jonas had learned to read these sounds the way other men read newspapers. Then came the scream. It cut through the forest like a knife, sharp and raw. Not quite human, too controlled for panic, too raw for anything but agony. The sound of someone who had been hurting for a long time, who had fought through pain until the body simply couldn't contain it anymore. Jonas froze, every sense suddenly sharp. His hand found the rifle without thought. He knew that sound. He'd heard it once before, 6 years ago. The sound of someone dying slowly, trapped and helpless. His horse's ears flicked forward nervously, picking up the scent of blood. Jonas urged the animal forward, following the sound through the rocky terrain. The blood trail started a quarter-mile from the scream's source. Dark drops on pale stone, already drying in the afternoon heat. Fresh, though, maybe 6 hours old, judging by the color. Jonas dismounted and moved forward on foot, rifle ready. The trail led him through a narrow wash between two red rock formations. He found her in a small clearing where the wash widened. The first thing he saw was the trap. Military-grade bear trap, its serrated jaws buried deep in human flesh. The chain attached to it was bolted to a boulder half buried in sand. Whoever had set this wasn't trying to catch animals. They were trying to catch people. The woman sprawled beside the trap was Apache. Her clothing, the beadwork on her tunic made that clear. She was tall for an Apache woman, broad-shouldered and powerfully built. Her black hair hung in 2 long braids, matted with dust and sweat. War paint streaked her face, smeared by pain and time. The trap had her left leg just below the knee. The teeth had gone deep, through muscle to bone. Blood had soaked the sand around her in a dark pool. Her quiver lay empty beside her, arrows scattered where she tried to shoot the chain free. She'd been there a long time. When Jonas stepped into her line of sight, her eyes locked onto him with an intensity that made his breath catch. There was no fear in that gaze, just fierce, burning defiance. Her hand moved to the war club at her belt. The motion was slow, hampered by blood loss, but the intent was clear. Come closer, white man, and I'll take you with me. Jonas stopped 20 feet away. He raised both hands slowly, showing they were empty. The rifle remained slung across his back. He spoke in Apache, the words halting but earnest. Not enemy, I help. She stared at him for a long moment, then switched to English. I need no white man's pity, I die with honor. Jonas studied the trap, the chain, the dried blood. The trap was new, well-made, professionally installed. The placement was deliberate, but this wasn't set for game. This was designed to catch people. Honor doesn't feed the coyotes, Jonas said, gesturing at the vultures circling overhead. You want to prove something, or you want to live to fight tomorrow? She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes tracked over him, reading details. His moccasins, Ute-made, the way he stood, maintaining respectful distance. The fact that he'd spoken Apache first. The fact that he hadn't reached for a weapon. You have 2 minutes, mountain man, she said finally. Then I decide if I kill you for touching me. Jonas nodded and moved forward slowly. He knelt beside the trap, examining the mechanism. Spring-loaded with a hidden release lever. The spring was stiff, crusted with dried blood from previous victims. This trap had caught others before her. This will hurt, he said, meeting her eyes. When it opens, blood will flow faster. I have to be ready. She said something in Apache, short and sharp. Do what you must. Jonas pulled the bandana from his neck. Bite down on this. She took it without argument. Their eyes met again, and something passed between them. Understanding, maybe. Jonas gripped the release mechanism and threw his full weight against it. The spring resisted, rust and blood making it stick. He pushed harder. The woman's hand shot out and gripped his wrist, not attacking, just holding on. Her fingers dug in hard enough to bruise. Her jaw clenched around the bandana. Then the mechanism gave way with a wet, grinding sound. The jaws opened. Blood flowed freely. The woman gasped, the first real sound of vulnerability she'd allowed herself. Jonas didn't hesitate. He wrapped the wound tight with strips torn from his shirt. The bleeding slowed but didn't stop. She needed real medicine, clean water, rest. As he worked, she watched him with eyes that had started to lose focus. When he lifted her in his arms, she spoke again, her voice fading. They come for you now, the men who set trap. You help me, you die with me. Let them come, Jonas said, though his heart hammered. He carried her toward his horse. His horse shied at the smell of blood, but settled when Jonas spoke to it. He managed to get the woman across the saddle. Her head lolled against his chest, consciousness slipping away. Stay with me, he said. I've got a cave nearby. Water, shelter, medicine. Just stay with me. He didn't know why it mattered so much. He'd been alone for 6 years by choice, avoiding human contact. But maybe that was exactly why it mattered. Because he'd been alone long enough to forget what it felt like to have someone depend on him. The ride to the cave took longer than he wanted. He kept the horse to a walk. Every few minutes he checked her pulse at her throat, feeling the flutter of her heartbeat. Still alive, still fighting. The sun touched the western horizon as they reached the cave. It was one of Jonas's backup shelters, a space behind a seasonal waterfall. Dried meat, herbs for medicine, blankets, ammunition. He carried her inside and laid her on a bed of pine boughs. In the dim light, he could see her face more clearly. High cheekbones, strong jaw, a small scar on her forehead in the shape of a crescent moon. She was younger than he'd first thought, maybe late 20s. Jonas built a small fire, set his tin cup in the coals to heat water. While he waited, he examined her leg more carefully. The damage was worse than he'd hoped. The trap's teeth had torn through muscle. He could see white bone. Without proper treatment, gangrene could set in within days. He pulled herbs from his pack. Yarrow for blood clotting, white sage for infection, willow bark for pain. He'd learned their uses from a Ute medicine man during the winter he'd spent half-starved in the mountains after leaving the army. The woman woke when he poured hot water over the wound. She came back with a bomb, her hands shooting out to grip his wrist with surprising strength. Her eyes locked onto his, wide and fierce. She said something in Apache, sharp and warning. I know, Jonas said quietly. But if I don't clean this, infection will do what the trap couldn't. So you can kill me after, or let me work. Your choice. She stared at him, then released his wrist. Her hand fell back, trembling. Jonas worked in silence, cleaning the wound. When he began to stitch with sinew thread, she bit down on the leather strap he offered. Sweat beaded her forehead. Her hands clenched into fists. But she didn't cry out, just endured with a strength that made something twist in his chest. When he finally finished and wrapped the leg in clean cloth, the sun had fully set. The woman lay still, her breathing shallow but steady. You know medicine, she said suddenly. Jonas glanced at her. Lived with Ute tribe one winter. Learned some. Your hands. They know healing, not just killing. I've done both. Tried to do more of one than the other. What's you called? Jonas Riddick. She tested the name silently. I am Istus. Snow, Jonas translated. That's a winter name. Born during rare snow, my mother said it was sign. She was medicine woman, taught me plants, healing, before soldiers killed her. Jonas felt something cold settle in his stomach. I'm sorry. Why, you kill her? No, but I wore the uniform. My wife and daughter died in an Apache raid 6 years ago. Fort Apache. I was out scouting. Came back too late. Istas studied him with new intensity. You blame yourself for being away. Every day. And I blame myself for being right there, unable to stop soldiers' bullets. She held his gaze. We carry same weight, mountain man. Different sides. Same grief. The fire crackled between them. Two people who should have been enemies found themselves united by loss. Sleep, Jonas said finally. I'll keep watch. They will come. Men who set trap. They hunt me specific. Find me, find you. Both die. Then we'll deal with them when they come. But tonight you rest. She made a sound that might have been a laugh. White man give Apache woman orders. Brave or stupid? Probably both, Jonas admitted. She smiled, just barely, and then sleep took her. Jonas sat with his back against the cave wall, rifle across his knees, watching the entrance. His mind turned over everything she'd said. They hunt me specific. Someone had set that trap knowing she would come. Morning came with pale gray light. Jonas had dozed in shifts, waking at every sound. Istas slept restlessly, fever building. He left her sleeping and ventured out to check for signs of pursuit. He found their trail within a quarter mile, 8 horses moving in a search pattern. Professional hunters. They'd found the trap site, found the blood trail, found the direction he'd taken. Jonas moved closer, using his scout training to stay invisible. He found them camped near a spring. 8 men, well-armed, well-supplied, and among them a face he recognized. Vicente Garza, half Mexican, half Apache, all mercenary. Jonas had crossed paths with him during his army days. The man was a tracker, one of the best. Jonas crouched in the rocks and listened. The leader was a man he didn't recognize, tall with burn scars covering the left side of his face. He wore remnants of a Confederate officer's uniform. Tarak's daughter is worth $1,000 to Don Esteban, the scarred man said. Alive is preferable. She's trained, strong, perfect for the fighting pits. Dead still brings 500. Vicente spat into the fire. She's probably bled out already. That trap was set 3 days ago. Then we find the body. The scarred man stood. Don Esteban doesn't pay for failure. We bring him Chief Tarak's daughter, or we don't come back at all. Jonas's blood ran cold. Chief Tarak. Everyone in the territory knew that name. Chiricahua Apache, one of the most respected leaders. If Estes was his daughter, that explained everything. Found blood trail heading northeast, another man called out. Maybe 12 hours old. Someone helped her. The scarred man's expression shifted. Then we're hunting 2 now. Find them both. The father will negotiate for his daughter. If we have a white man who helped her, we have leverage. Jonas had heard enough. He moved back toward the cave. They had maybe 2 hours. Not enough time to run. Not enough time to hide. which left only one option: fight. When he reached the Pagde, Istis was awake. She'd managed to sit up, her hand resting on the war club beside her. "You went to look," she said. Jonas nodded. 8 men, professional hunters, led by a man with burn scars wearing Confederate gray. "They know who you are. They're coming." Istis nodded slowly. Silas Crow, former major, lost his brother 3 months ago when I raided his slave camp. Swore he would chain me before winter. Slave camp? They take Apache, sell to Mexican buyer, fighting pits, labor camps. Worse. Her jaw tightened. I destroyed his cages, freed 15 prisoners, killed 4 of his men. He wants revenge. Jonas absorbed this. They'll be here in 2 hours, maybe less. Then you go. Leave me weapons. I make them pay. Not happening. Mountain Man, I am not your burden. No, you're someone who needs help. That's all the reason I need. She stared at him. Then quietly, why? You lose nothing if I die. Jonas thought about Rebecca, about Lily, about 6 years of trying to outrun their graves. 6 years ago, I failed to save people I loved. Every day since, I've been trying to figure out if I'm surviving or just refusing to die. Maybe helping you helps me answer that question. Maybe you die trying. Then I die doing something that matters. The sound of horses approaching cut off whatever she might have said. Closer than 2 hours. Jonas grabbed his rifle. Istis tried to stand, fell back with a gasp. "Stay here," Jonas said. "Let me handle this." "You are brave fool." "Been called worse." He moved to the entrance. "If this goes wrong, there's a way out through the back. Follow the water." 2 men appeared at the clearing's edge, one young, nervous, the other heavy, with a face that said he'd done bad things and slept fine. The heavy man spotted the cave. "Well now, what do we have here?" They approached cautiously. The young one entered first. When he saw Istis, his face lit up. "Found her, she's—" Jonas hit him from the side, rifle butt, catching him across the temple. The man dropped. The heavy one spun, reaching for his knife. They collided, grappling. "Got the white man too," the heavy one shouted. "They're in the cave." Then Istis's war club caught him across the skull. She dragged herself upright. The heavy man collapsed. Jonas and Istis stared at each other, both breathing hard. Blood ran down her leg, where stitches had torn. "I told you to rest," Jonas said. "I told you I do not run." She smiled, fierce. "We are even now. You save me. I save you." "Not how I keep score." "How you keep score, then?" Jonas heard more horses. They were out of time. "Ask me later, if there is a later." The sound of riders surrounded the cave. Jonas counted voices. At least 6 men, all armed, all angry. "Jonas Riddick," a voice echoed. The scarred man. "That is you, isn't it? Vicente remembers you. Army scout who warned the Apache, traitor. You always did have a soft spot for Indians." Jonas said nothing. "Here's how this works. You send out the girl, we take her, leave you alive, or you keep her, and we come in shooting. Either way, we get what we came for." Istis touched Jonas's arm. "You can still—" "No. I am not worth— You're worth exactly as much as any other human being." He checked his ammunition. "And I'm done letting people die when I can do something." The sound of war cries split the air, distant but unmistakable. Apache voices coming from the north. "Apache!" someone shouted. "Lots of them." "How many?" 20, maybe more. Painted for war." "Fall back. Now!" Within seconds, the clearing was empty except for dust and the 2 unconscious men. Jonas looked at Istis. She'd gone pale. "Your people?" Jonas asked. "My father. He comes for me, and now he finds you." The Apache warriors appeared like shadows. 25 riders on painted horses, all armed. They surrounded the area with smooth efficiency. Jonas counted weapons, enough to turn this cave into a tomb. A single rider moved forward, massive, broader than any man Jonas had ever seen. He wore traditional clothing with more decoration than the others. His face was weathered, his eyes hard as flint. Chief Tarak. Had to be. The resemblance to Istis was there. Tarak dismounted and moved toward the cave. Jonas stood his ground, hands visible, rifle held loosely. Not threatening, but not surrendering. Tarek rushed past Jonas to Istis. He knelt beside Din, his large hands gentle, as they touched her face, examined her leg. He spoke rapidly in Apache. She answered, gesturing at Jonas. Finally, Tarek stood. He turned to face Jonas fully. You are mountain man. Live alone in these hills. Why you help Apache woman? Jonas met his eyes. She was dying. I had the skills to help. Didn't need another reason. These men, Tarek gestured at the unconscious hunters. You fight them? Fought them. Didn't kill them. Your daughter hit the one still breathing. Tarek's lips might have twitched. You know who she is? Figured out she was someone important. Didn't know she was your daughter until I heard Crow's men talking. And still you protect her. Risk your life for stranger. Tarek studied Jonas. Why she? Jonas thought about the easy lies he could tell, but something in Tarek's eyes demanded truth. Because 6 years ago, I failed to protect people I loved. My wife and daughter died in an Apache raid on Fort Apache. I was away scouting. Came back too late. He paused. Been running from that ever since. Hiding in these mountains. When I found your daughter in that trap, dying alone, I had a choice. Walk away or help. I guess I decided I was done running. Done failing people who needed help. The silence felt like judgment being passed. Behind Tarek, warriors watched with weapons ready. Then another warrior stepped forward. Older, scarred, he spoke to Tarek and Apache, gesturing at Jonas. Honon says he knows you, 6 winters past. Fort Apache, you were scout who warned his hunting party of ambush, saved many lives. This true? Jonas remembered. His commanding officer had ordered an attack on an Apache camp. Jonas had refused to guide it, had warned the camp instead. The court-martial had been quiet, but the discharge was real. It's true, got me kicked out of the army. Why you do this? They are your people. We are enemy. No, women and children aren't enemies. They're just people trying to survive. I couldn't lead soldiers to slaughter them. Tarek studied him for another long moment. Then he spoke to Istis in Apache, a question. She answered firmly. They went back and forth, Istis's voice rising occasionally. Tarek's expression hardened. Finally, he turned back to Jonas. My daughter tells me you found her in trap, freed her though you could run, protected her from slavers though you could surrender her, shed blood defending her though you owe her nothing. He paused. By our law, you have done 3 sacred things. You have saved her life. You have stayed with her when you could flee. You have fought for her honor. These 3 things are claiming ceremony. You have claimed her as wife, whether you know it or not. Jonas felt the words hit like a physical blow. I didn't claim anyone. I helped someone who needed it. Intention does not matter. Action matters. You stayed with her 2 days and nights. You bound her wounds. You defended her. In Apache law, this is choosing. Istis tried to interrupt. Tarek silenced her with a gesture. Tomorrow, when sun reaches highest point, you will marry my daughter. This is our law. This is honor. And if I refuse, Jonas asked. Tarek's expression went cold. Then you say she was not worth protecting. That our ways mean nothing. You dishonor her, me, all Apache. He stepped closer. Inhonorable men do not walk from our territory alive. Choose now, marry my daughter tomorrow, or feed coyotes tonight. Warriors moved closer, hands on weapons. Jonas looked past Tarek to Istis. Their eyes met. Her expression was complex. Fear, maybe. Hope, possibly. Resignation, certainly. Jonas thought about Rebecca and Lily, about 6 years of grief and emptiness, about Istis's fierce strength, about the fact that he'd told her he was done running. Here was the universe, calling his bluff. I'll marry her, Jonas said. Tarek nodded once, sharp and final. He barked orders. Warriors bound Jonas's wrists. The leather was tight, but not cruel. Ceremonial binding. He was guest who couldn't leave, not prisoner. As they led him to the horses, Jonas looked back at Istis. She was being carefully lifted by warriors. Their eyes met across the clearing. She mouthed something. I'm sorry. Jonas shook his head slightly. Sorry implied regret. He wasn't sure what he felt, but regret wasn't part of it yet. The ride to the village took 3 hours through mountain passes. By the time they descended into the Hidden Box Canyon, the sun was dropping toward the western horizon. The village spread out below, 40 or 50 wickiups arranged in protective circles. Women stopped work to stare. Children pointed and whispered. Elders observed from a ceremonial platform. They brought Jonas to a guest wickiup near the center. The bindings were removed at the entrance. Inside, the space was comfortable. Blankets, fire pit, food and water waiting. Tarak stood in the entrance, backlit by the setting sun. You are not prisoner. You are guest who may not leave until ceremony is complete. Tomorrow you become Apache or tomorrow you die. There is no third path. He left. Jonas sat on the blankets, his mind reeling. Less than 2 days ago, he'd been checking trap lines, alone and empty. Now he was in an Apache village, preparing to marry a woman he had known for 2 days. Marry her or die. Live or die. Choose connection or choose nothing. Outside, the village settled into evening. Somewhere, Istas was being tended by healers. Somewhere, Tarak was explaining to his people. Somewhere, the sun was setting on Jonas Riddick's old life. He touched his ribs, the spot where a scar didn't yet exist but would soon enough. The spot he'd touched 60 years later while telling this story to a great-grandson. The trap had caught him after all, just not the one he'd been expecting. And for the first time in 6 years, Jonas Riddick felt something other than numbness. He felt afraid. He felt alive. He felt like maybe he'd been walking toward this moment since the day he'd buried his family and walked into the mountains to die slowly. Only he hadn't died, he'd survived, and tomorrow he'd find out if there was a difference. Morning came too soon. Jonas had barely slept, his mind circling endlessly around the choice he'd already made but didn't fully understand. Through the Wikiup's entrance, he could see the village coming to life. Women tending fires, children chasing each other between dwellings, men preparing for the day's work. Normal life, except nothing about his situation was normal. A young girl appeared at the entrance, maybe 9 years old, with huge dark eyes and a shy smile. She carried a clay cup of water, offering it with both hands. Jonas took it, nodding his thanks. Istas saved me from bad men, the girl whispered in careful English. 6 moons ago. Are you good man? Jonas studied her face, seeing old fear beneath new hope. I try to be. Good. Istas needs someone good. She smiled briefly, then darted away like a frightened bird. Before Jonas could process that encounter, an older woman entered without knocking. She was tall, dignified, maybe in her late 60s. Her presence filled the space with quiet authority. I am Huyana, she said in accented English. Tarek's sister, medicine elder, her penetrating gaze fixed on him. I dreamed of you. 3 moons passed. The mountain ghost who walks between 2 worlds. Jonas set down the cup. I'm no ghost. No, but you are caught between 2 lives. Dead one and one not yet born. She moved closer, examining him like he was a puzzle to solve. I'll explain this out. This is why spirits sent you to my niece. I don't believe in spirits deciding things. What you believe does not change what is true. Huyana pulled back his shirt without asking permission, examining the cut on his ribs from yesterday's fight. You let her stitch you. This is good. Shows trust. She saved my life, and you saved hers. Twice now. Balance creates bond. Huyana released his shirt. Tonight you decide what kind of bond. Tomorrow you honor that decision or reject it. Both have consequences. Before Jonas could respond, she was gone, leaving only the scent of sage and questions he couldn't answer. An hour later, a different visitor arrived. This one brought hostility like a cloud. The man was young, maybe 30, with a warrior's build and anger in every line of his body. 3 other young men flanked him. I am Dakota, he said in harsh English. Istas is my cousin. I have loved her since we were children. Jonas stood slowly, reading the threat in the man's posture. Your chief seems to have made a different decision. My chief is old. His mind softens. I see truth. Dakota stepped closer. You are white man who wants Apache woman. You think 2 days in cave makes you worthy? I think I helped someone who needed it. Your chief interpreted that according to your laws, not mine. I have counted coup 12 times, killed 5 enemies of our people, tracked mountain lion through 3 days of snow. Dakota's voice rose. What have you done, white man? What makes you think you deserve her? Jonas met his eyes calmly. I don't know if I deserve her, but I know I'm not going to let her die because helping her was inconvenient. Dakota spat at Jonas's feet. Words, I want to see what you are made of. Fight me. Prove you are worthy or leave like the coward you are. Jonas didn't want this fight, but he recognized he had no choice. Refusing would mark him as weak. Fighting might earn respect, or at least establish he wasn't easy prey. Fine, but not because I think fighting proves anything, because you won't listen otherwise. They moved outside where a crowd had already gathered. News traveled fast in the village. Jonas saw Istis being helped to the edge of the circle by 2 women. Her face was unreadable, but she was watching intently. Tarek stood to one side, arms crossed, making no move to stop what was happening. This was apparently allowed, maybe even expected. Dakota attacked immediately, no warning, going for a takedown in the Apache wrestling style. Fast, technical, aiming for joints and pressure points. Jonas sprawled, using his weight to counter, catching Dakota in a headlock. Dakota twisted, found a pressure point on Jonas's injured ribs. Pain exploded through Jonas's side. His grip loosened. They separated, circled each other. The next exchange was brutal. Dakota was faster, more technically skilled. Jonas was heavier, more experienced with the kind of dirty fighting that kept you alive in desperate situations. They traded blows, both connecting, both bleeding. Dakota got Jonas in an armbar, cranking pressure. Leave now or I break your arm. You are not worthy of her. Jonas gritted his teeth against the pain. No. More pressure, his elbow screamed, but he refused to submit, refused to give Dakota the satisfaction. Instead, he headbutted backward, catching Dakota's nose. The grip loosened. Jonas rolled free. He gained mount position, fist raised for the knockout blow. Dakota lay beneath him, dazed, vulnerable. Jonas could end it, could humiliate him in front of the entire village. Instead, he offered his hand. Dakota stared at the extended hand, confused. You mock me? No, I respect that you love her. I understand wanting to protect her, but she's not property to be won. She chooses, not us. Before Dakota could respond, Istis's voice cut across the circle. She spoke in Apache, her tone sharp and commanding. Jonas didn't understand all the words, but he caught the general meaning. An older warrior standing nearby whispered a translation. She tells him she has refused him 5 times. Now she refuses him before the whole tribe. He is her brother in spirit, never her husband. He must accept this with honor. Dakota's face went through several emotions. Humiliation, anger, pain, finally resignation. He stood without taking Jonas's hand, but he gave a brief nod. Recognition, if not friendship. An older warrior with scars across one arm approached Jonas. You fight with honor. Could have shamed him, did not. This is wisdom. I am Honan. I remember you from Fort Apache. You're the one who testified to the chief. Yes, you saved my family that day. My wife, my children. We do not forget such things. Honan glanced at Istis. She is a strong woman, stronger than most men. She needs partner who respects that strength, not man who fears it. I'm beginning to understand that. Good, then maybe you survive marriage. Honan's scarred face creased into something like a smile. Come, we prepare you for ceremony. Cannot marry looking like you lost fight with bear. The men's preparation area was near the hot spring at the village's center. Honan and several other warriors helped Jonas strip and wash, the hot water stinging his cuts but feeling good on his tired muscles. This is sacred water, Honan explained as they worked, blessed by spirits. We clean body before ceremony, clean spirit too. They gave him traditional Apache clothing. The leather shirt was soft, decorated with intricate beadwork. Honan explained each pattern. Bear represents strength in adversity. You have this already. Eagle represents vision to see truth. You must learn this. Mountain represents endurance through hardship. You will need this. The leggings were similarly decorated, moccasins with turquoise buttons. Everything fit surprisingly well, as if it had been prepared specifically for him. These belong to my father, Tarek said, appearing suddenly. He was great warrior, great chief. These clothes have much honor. I give them to you because you have earned some honor. Not much yet, but some. Jonas wasn't sure how to respond. I'll try to be worthy of them. Try is not enough. Do or die. No middle ground. But Tarak's voice lacked the hardness from yesterday. You fight Dakota with honor. Could have broken his pride. Instead, you gave him dignity. This is wise. He will remember. They braided Jonas's hair, weaving eagle feathers into it. The touch was surprisingly gentle, ritualistic. Then came face paint, red and white stripes. Red is bloodshed for others, Honan explained. White is peace that comes after war. You carry both now. The final touch was a ceremonial knife that had belonged to Tarak's father. The blade was old, well-maintained, the handle worn smooth by generations of use. This is great honor, Honan whispered. Chief gives you weapon of his father. Means he accepts you as son. Jonas held the knife, feeling its weight, its history. This was real. This was happening. In a few hours, he would marry a woman he barely knew, join a people who had every reason to hate him, become part of something he didn't fully understand. The question was whether he had the courage to go through with it. While Jonas was being prepared, Istas sat in the women's wickiup, surrounded by aunts and cousins and her Aunt Huyana. Her leg throbbed despite the medicine, but she refused to show weakness. You do not have to do this, Huyana said quietly in Apache, while the other women worked on her hair. You could speak against it. Your father would listen. No, he would not. He has made his decision according to our law. To speak against it would dishonor the mountain man who saved my life. You feel obligation, not desire. Istas was quiet for a moment. I do not know what I feel. He is stranger, white man, enemy to our people. Yet not enemy to you. No, he could have left me to die, could have surrendered me to Crow's men, could have saved himself many times. Instead, he stayed, fought, bled for me. Istas met her aunt's eyes. What kind of man does this for stranger? Honorable man or foolish man, sometimes they are same thing. The other women brought the wedding dress, white doe skin, softer than clouds, covered with months of careful beadwork. Istas's mother had made it years ago, hoping to see her daughter wear it one day. Mother would laugh at this situation, Istas said, touching the dress with gentle fingers. Me, the warrior who refused all suitors, forced to marry white man she just met. Your mother would see what I see, Huyana corrected. Daughter who finally found man strong enough to match her, not in physical strength, but in strength of character. He does not fear your power. He respects it. He does not know me well enough to respect anything. He knows the important things. He knows you fight even when dying. He knows you saved his life when you could barely stand. He knows you speak truth without softening it. Huyana helped her into the dress. These are things that matter. Rest you can learn. As the women worked, Istas found herself thinking about Jonas, the way he'd freed her from the trap without hesitation, the gentle efficiency of his medical care, the moment he'd offered his hand to Dakota instead of delivering the humiliating blow. Aunt, what if I cannot be wife? What if I only know how to be warrior? Huyana smiled. Who says you must choose? Warriors can love. Fighters can have families. Your mother was both medicine woman and fighter. She tended wounds and defended her people. You can do same. White men want soft wives, obedient wives. This white man chose to marry you knowing what you are. If he wanted soft wife, he would have run. He did not run. This tells you something. The women finished her hair, braiding it with eagle feathers and small silver bells. Her mother's turquoise jewelry, heavy with memory. For the first time in years, Istas wore no war paint, just her face, bare and vulnerable. One of her cousins whispered, "You look beautiful." Istas didn't feel beautiful. She felt terrified, not of Jonas, but of what this meant, of opening herself to someone after spending years building walls, of trusting a man with her heart when warriors were trained never to show weakness. He will see me, she said quietly, Really see me? What if he does not like what he sees? Then he is fool, Huiana said firmly, and fools do not survive long. I do not think this man is fool. Evening came, and with it, an unexpected visitor. Jonas heard soft footsteps outside his wickiup. Then Istis appeared at the entrance. She moved carefully, using a walking stick, her injured leg wrapped in fresh bandages. I should not be here, she said. Custom says bride and groom do not meet before ceremony. Then why are you here? Because I do not always follow custom. She sat down carefully, wincing as she arranged her leg. And because we need to talk before tomorrow. Jonas moved to help her but stopped when she glared at him. Independent, even injured, she wanted to do things herself. Your father made his decision, Jonas said. What is there to talk about? Everything. Estes met his eyes directly. You do not have to do this. You can tell my father you refuse. He will let you leave. You will live. And you? I will be fine. I am always fine. That's not what I asked. What happens to you if I refuse? Estes looked away. I will be shamed. Other warriors will see that white man refused me, will think I am not worthy. Makes harder for me to lead patrols, to be taken seriously. So refusing would hurt you. Better than forcing you into marriage you do not want. Jonas studied her face, seeing the pride there, the fear beneath it, the complicated tangle of emotions she was trying to hide. What do you want, Obayt? The question seemed to surprise her. What I want does not matter. Law is law. It matters to me. She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer. I want partner, not owner, not man who sees me as prize he won or burden he must carry. Partner who fights beside me, not for me, who respects my strength instead of fearing it. I can do that. You say this now, but you do not know what it means. I am not gentlewoman who cooks and cleans and bears children quietly. I ride, I fight, I lead warriors into danger. I make decisions that get people killed. Her voice cracked slightly. I am hard woman, difficult woman. Most men cannot accept this. Jonas thought about Rebecca, who had been gentle and kind, who had made their home a place of peace, about Lily, whose laughter had filled every room, about 6 years of grief for a life he had lost. I'm not most men, he said finally, and I'm not looking for someone to replace what I lost. I'm looking for, I don't even know what I'm looking for, but I know this. When I found you in that trap, dying alone, something in me woke up, something that had been dead for 6 years. I don't know if that's enough foundation for a marriage, but it's more than I've felt about anything in a long time. Istas searched his face, looking for deception, finding only honesty. You lost wife, lost child. Maybe you do not want new family. I understand this. Maybe I don't know what I want, but I know running away from this feels like running away from life itself. I've been doing that for 6 years. I'm tired of running. If you stay, if you choose this, it will not be easy. My people will test you, expect you to prove yourself again and again. Some will never accept you. I didn't expect easy, and I will test you too. I will challenge you, argue with you, disobey when I think you are wrong. She lifted her chin. Can you accept this? Jonas almost smiled. Honestly, that sounds exhausting. For the first time, Istis laughed. Really laughed, the sound surprising them both. Good answer, mountain man. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Istis pulled up her tunic slightly, showing a scar on her ribs, long, ragged, old enough to have faded to pale silver. Bear attack when I was 16. I tracked alone. Stupid pride. Bear was protecting cubs. I did not see them until too late. Nearly died. Jonas could see the scar went deep, probably cracked ribs at minimum. How did you survive? My mother found me, saved my life with medicine and prayers. Istas touched the scar gently. She came to me in fever dream, said, Daughter, strength is not refusing all help. Strength is knowing when to accept it. Wise woman. Yes, I miss her every day. Estes met his eyes. Maybe spirit sent you to that trap. For both of us. You need purpose after loss. I need partner who sees me truly. Maybe this is what spirits intend. I'm not sure I believe in spirits. You do not have to believe for them to work. She started to stand, grimacing with pain. Jonas moved to help her this time, and she let him. Their faces were close, her hand on his arm for balance. Tomorrow you decide, she said quietly. But know this, if you stay, I will not be grateful wife who obeys without question. I will ride with you, fight with you, challenge you when you are wrong. Can you truly accept this? I don't know, Jonas admitted, but I'm willing to find out. Ista studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Then we find out together. She left, limping into the night, leaving Jonas alone with his thoughts and the knowledge that tomorrow would change everything. Jonas couldn't sleep. The wickiup felt too small, the air too close. Near midnight, Huyana appeared again at his entrance. Cannot sleep? No. This is good. Means you take seriously what comes. She held out a clay cup. Drink this. Will help you see clearly. Jonas eyed these cups suspiciously. What is it? Sacred medicine. Datura root. Peyote. White sage. Opens mind to truth you already know but fear to see. I don't need visions. I need clearer thinking. Same thing. You think with clouded mind. Fear clouds. Grief clouds. This medicine clears clouds. Lets you see what is really there. Huyana pushed the cup toward him. Drink or do not drink. But if you refuse wisdom, do not complain later that you chose blindly. Jonas took the cup. The liquid inside was bitter, earthy, foul-tasting. He drank it anyway, all of it, refusing to show weakness even to this old woman who seemed to see through him like glass. Good, now lie down, let medicine work. I will watch over you. You are safe. Jonas lay back on the blankets, his heart already starting to race as the drug took hold. The wickiup seemed to shift and breathe around him. The fire's shadows became faces, memories, ghosts returning from wherever he'd buried them. Then he was somewhere else entirely. He stood in a meadow filled with wildflowers, the kind Rebecca had loved. The sun was warm, the air sweet. In the distance, he saw two figures, Rebecca and Lily, both wearing white, both smiling at him. Lily ran toward him, her small legs pumping, her laughter bright as bells. She crashed into his arms with the force of a cannonball. He caught her, held her, felt her solid weight, her warmth, the reality of her, even though he knew this couldn't be real. Daddy, you're finally here. Baby, I've missed you so much. We know. We see you up on your mountain so sad and alone. She pulled back, her small hands on his face. Why you sleep on mountain, Daddy? Why you hide? Rebecca approached then, moving with that grace he'd fallen in love with years ago. Her hand touched his face, real as anything. Jonas, look at me. He looked and nearly broke. She was exactly as he remembered. The woman he'd loved, the woman he'd failed, the woman whose grave he'd visited until visiting became too painful and he'd fled into isolation. I'm sorry, he whispered. I couldn't save you. I failed you both. No, Rebecca's voice was firm. You weren't meant to save us. Our time was finished, but your time is not. You understand? I don't want more time. Not without you. Jonas Riddick, you listen to me. Rebecca's eyes flashed with that stubbornness he'd always loved. You think honoring us means suffering forever? Staying frozen in grief? We want you to live. Really, truly live. I don't know how anymore. Lily tugged on his shirt. Daddy, are you going to marry the arrow lady? Jonas looked down at his daughter, his heart breaking. Would that be okay? Would you be angry? Why would we be angry? Rebecca's voice was gentle now. We're not asking permission, Jonas. We're giving blessing. She seems nice, Lily said seriously. And she shoots really good with bow. Better than you, probably. Despite everything, Jonas laughed. Probably. The scene shifted. Suddenly he saw Istis fighting alone, surrounded by enemies, overwhelmed. She fought bravely, but she was falling, dying, reaching out for help that didn't come. Then he saw himself beside her, fighting together. And they won. They survived. They thrived. Rebecca's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. She is your second path, Jonas. Don't waste it by clinging to the first. We'll always be with you, in your heart, in your memory. But we want you to be happy. We want you to love again. We want you to live. I'm scared, Jonas admitted, the words torn from some deep place. Scared to care about someone again. Scared to lose someone again. Everyone is scared, Lily said wisely, sounding far older than her years. But you're brave, Daddy. You can do scary things. How do you know? Because you came down from the mountain. You helped someone even though it was dangerous. You chose to stay even though you could run. She hugged him tight. That's really brave. The meadow began to fade, the light growing brighter, washing everything out. Rebecca and Lily started to fade too, becoming transparent. Wait! Jonas reached for them, desperate. Don't go, not yet. We're not going anywhere, Rebecca said, her voice distant now. We're always with you, but you need to go back now. You need to choose life, choose her, choose tomorrow. I love you both so much. We know and we love you. Now wake up and live. Jonas woke with a quabs, his face wet with tears. Huyana sat nearby, tending the fire, her expression serene. You see? She asked simply. I saw them. Rebecca and Lily. They were so real. Maybe they were real. Maybe medicine just lets you see what is already there but hidden. Does it matter? Jonas sat up, his head clearing. They gave me permission to move forward, to try again. You did not need their permission, but maybe you needed to give yourself permission. Huyana stood, old bones creaking. Now you know, tomorrow you choose clearly, not from obligation, not from guilt, not from fear, from understanding. She left him alone with the dawn approaching in a clarity he hadn't felt in 6 years. He walked outside, watching the first light touch the canyon walls, painting them gold and red. He touched the ring he'd been wearing on a leather cord around his neck. Rebecca's wedding ring, the only thing he'd kept. He held it for a long moment, remembering, honoring, saying goodbye in a way he'd never been able to before. Then he found a quiet spot and buried it beneath a special stone, marking the place so he could find it again if he wanted, but knowing he wouldn't need to. Thank you, he whispered to the stone, to the ring beneath it, to the memories it represented. For 6 good years, for Lily, for teaching me what love was. I'll never forget. But I'm ready now, ready to try again. The sun continued to rise, and Jonas Riddick stood a little straighter, his shoulders a little lighter, ready to face what came next. The village gathered as the sun climbed toward its peak. Every member of the tribe assembled in the central area, forming a wide circle around the ceremonial space. Warriors stood at attention, their lances planted in the ground. Women held children too young to understand but old enough to sense importance. Even the dogs seemed to recognize this was significant, lying quiet at the edges. Jonas stood at the eastern edge of the circle, wearing the Apache clothing Tarek had given him, his hair braided with eagle feathers, his face painted with red and white stripes. Honan stood beside him, coaching him quietly. When Chief asks question, you answer clearly, loud enough for all to hear. No hesitation. What exactly am I agreeing to? Everything. You agreed to become Apache, to take her people as your people, her enemies as your enemies, her honor as your honor. You agreed to live by our laws, fight for our tribe, die for our tribe if necessary. This is not small promise. Jonas nodded, his mouth dry. And if I can't do it, if I fail, then you bring shame to yourself, to her, to Chief who vouched for you. Onan met his eyes. But I do not think you will fail. You have already proven yourself in ways that matter. Today is just making it official. Movement at the western edge of the circle drew everyone's attention. Estes appeared, surrounded by women. Jonas's breath caught. She was transformed. The warrior woman he'd met in the trap was gone, replaced by something both more and less. The white doe-skin dress made her look softer, more vulnerable, but the way she held herself was pure strength. Her long black hair was elaborately braided, adorned with eagle feathers and small silver bells that chimed softly with each step. Turquoise jewelry at her throat and wrists, clearly old, clearly precious. But it was her face that struck him most. No war paint, just her, open and bare, letting everyone see her completely. Their eyes met across the circle, and something passed between them. Understanding, maybe, or just the recognition that they were both terrified and doing this anyway. Tarak stood at the center of the ceremonial space, wearing his full war chief regalia, the feathered headdress, bone breastplate, ceremonial paint. He raised one hand, and the crowd fell silent instantly. He began speaking in Apache, his voice carrying across the village with the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Jonas caught fragments, words he recognized: honor, debt, alliance, sacred law. Tarak was explaining to his people what was happening and why. Then he switched to English, clearly for Jonas's benefit. Istas, daughter of Tarak, warrior of our people. Jonas Riddick, mountain man who saved her life. You stand before tribe, before ancestors, before the land itself. What you do here today binds you forever. What the tribe witnesses, no man can break. He gestured for them to step forward. They did, moving to stand before him. Istas moved carefully, her injured leg clearly paining her, but she refused to limp or show weakness. Tarak turned to Istas first. Daughter, do you accept this man as husband, as protector, as partner in all things? Istas's voice was steady, strong. I accept. Tarak turned to Jonas. Jonas Riddick, do you accept this woman as wife, as warrior, as partner in all things? Do you accept her people as your people, her enemies as your enemies, her honor as your honor, her strength as gift, not threat? This was it, the moment, the choice he couldn't take back. Jonas looked at Istas, seeing the fierce pride there, the vulnerability she was trying to hide, the hope she wouldn't let herself fully feel. He thought about Rebecca and Lily, about their blessing in his vision, about 6 years of running and hiding, about the trap that had caught him and changed everything. I accept, Jonas said, his voice carrying across the circle. I accept her. I accept all of it. I choose this freely. Tarak nodded, then gestured for Jonas to kneel. When he did, Istas extended her hand. He took it. Her palm was calloused from years of riding and fighting, warm and solid in his grip. Real, present, here. Tarak placed his massive hands over both of theirs. Then by our law you are bound. What the tribe witnesses, no man can break. You are now one. You share one path, one fate, one future. From this moment until death separates you. The crowd erupted in calls and whoops, warriors striking their lances against the ground in rhythm. The sound was deafening, joyful, accepting. But the celebration was cut short by a sound that made every warrior reach for weapons. A gunshot, distant but clear, from the eastern ridge. Then another, and another. Tarak's expression went cold. He barked orders in Apache, and warriors scattered, some running for horses, others taking defensive positions around the village. Women grabbed children and moved them toward protected wickiups. Within seconds, the celebration had transformed into organized chaos. The slave traders, Istas said, her hand tightening around Jonas's. They come now, during ceremony, when they think we are distracted. A young warrior ran up to Tarak, speaking rapidly in Apache. Tarak's face darkened. They attack from 3 sides, he said to Jonas. Try to draw us out. Divide our forces. His eyes were hard. You just became part of this tribe. Now you prove it. He thrust a lance into Jonas's hands. The weapon was heavy, unfamiliar. Jonas had never used a lance before, but as Istas moved to his side, grabbing her own bow despite her injury, he understood what was being asked. This wasn't a test. It was survival. Can you ride? Istas asked him. Yes. Can you fight? Jonas thought about his brother, about the fire, about all the running he'd done. Then he looked at the warriors preparing to defend their families, at Istas's determined face, at the village that had just accepted him. I'm about to find out, he said. Istas's smile was fierce. Good, then we fight together. They ran for the horses as another volley of gunshots echoed across the valley, and Jonas realized that marrying into this tribe meant more than ceremony and tradition. It meant standing between the people he'd just sworn to protect and the men who wanted to destroy them. His wedding day had just become a battlefield, and he had about 5 minutes to figure out how to use a lance before those men arrived. The slave traders came hard and fast, exactly as Tarak had predicted. 40 riders spreading out across the eastern approach, firing rifles as they charged. They were counting on chaos, on panic, on the tribe being unprepared during what should have been a celebration. What they got instead was disciplined warriors who'd been fighting longer than most of these men had been alive. Jonas rode beside Istas, his horse straining to keep pace despite her injured legs slowing them slightly. She handled her mount like it was part of her body, bow already drawn, releasing arrows with deadly precision. Two riders fell before they got within 100 yards of the village, and the remaining attackers scattered, looking for cover in the rocky terrain. That's when Tarak made his move. He'd positioned warriors on both flanks, hidden in the draws and gullies. When the slave traders broke formation, the Apache warriors emerged from concealment, cutting off their retreat, driving them toward the center, where Jonas and a dozen other riders waited. The scarred man from the canyon was among them. Silas Crow, still wearing his Confederate gray, still radiating cold calculation even as his plan fell apart. Jonas recognized him immediately, saw the moment Crow recognized him too. Crow wheeled his horse toward Jonas, raising his rifle. Jonas did the only thing he could think of. He threw the lance. He'd never thrown a lance before. Didn't know the proper technique, the right angle, the necessary force. But desperation made up for skill. The weapon flew awkwardly, but true enough. It caught Crow's horse in the chest. The animal went down hard, throwing its rider into the rocks. Crow's rifle discharged into the air. Before Crow could recover, 3 Apache warriors were on him, surrounding him, weapons ready but not killing. Not yet. Tarak wanted him alive for questioning. The fight lasted less than 10 minutes. The slave traders, outnumbered and outmaneuvered by warriors who knew every inch of this terrain, tried to surrender. But Tarak's face was stone. These men had set traps for his people, had planned to sell them like livestock. There would be no mercy. When the dust settled, 12 bodies lay scattered across the valley floor. Not a single Apache had fallen. The remaining slavers who'd escaped the initial ambush were fleeing south, abandoning their leader, their mission, their comrades. Jonas dismounted carefully, his hands shaking from adrenaline. Estes slid from her horse beside him, her injured leg nearly giving out. He caught her, steadied her. She leaned against him for just a moment, breathing hard. "You throw like someone who has never held lance before," she said. "I haven't. Didn't have much choice." Estes studied him, then nodded. "This is what it means to be part of tribe. You do what must be done, even when you do not know how." She touched his arm briefly. "You stayed. You fought. You proved my father right. Is that what you wanted? For me to prove something?" "No," her voice softened. "I want partner who chooses to stay even when it is hard. You could have run last night, could have refused ceremony, could have hidden when fighting started." She met his eyes. "But you stayed. This is what I want." Tarak approached, blood on his hands but satisfaction on his face. He looked at Jonas with something approaching approval. "You fight poorly, throw like child, but you stand where other men run. This makes you worthy husband for my daughter." Before Jonas could respond, Honan came running from the village perimeter. "Chief, the ones who escaped are not running away. They circle around, heading for the caves where women and children evacuated." Tarek's expression went deadly. "How many?" "At least 8, maybe more. They know about the caves. They planned this." Jonas felt his blood run cold. While they'd been defending the village, a secondary force had been moving to the real target. The vulnerable ones, the children. This wasn't just a raid. It was a coordinated attack designed to take hostages. "How far are they ahead of us?" Tarak demanded. 10 minutes, maybe 15. "Then we ride faster." Tarak turned to his warriors, barking orders. "Honan, Stonehand, 6 warriors stay here, guard village. Rest, come with me. We end this today." He looked at Jonas. "You just married into this tribe. Now you protect tribe. You come." It wasn't a request. They rode hard through mountain passes, 12 warriors plus Jonas, following the trail of the fleeing slavers. Tarak led with absolute confidence, reading the terrain like a book, predicting where the enemy would go based on years of experience. Istas rode with them despite her injury, despite Jonas's protests. "This is my fight," she'd said simply. I do not hide while others fight for me. The trail led them north, toward the sacred valley where the women and children had taken refuge. The valley was hidden, defensible, but only if the entrance wasn't breached. If the slavers reached it first, they could pin the refugees inside, turn the sanctuary into a trap. They have Vicente, Honan said as they rode. He knows Apache tactics. He knows we evacuate to sacred places. He led them there. Then Vicente dies today, Tarak said flatly. No more mercy for traitors. They reached a ridge overlooking the valley entrance, just as the slavers arrived below. 8 men, as Onan had estimated. They were setting up at the narrow canyon entrance, preparing to storm the caves where the refugees hid. Tarak raised his hand, signaling a halt. The warriors dismounted silently, taking positions along the ridge. Jonas found himself between Istas and Honan, his rifle ready, his heart pounding. We have higher ground, Tarak said quietly. We have surprise. We wait until they are committed to entering canyon, then we strike from above. Crossfire. No escape. It was a good plan, a simple plan, the kind that worked because it relied on fundamentals rather than complexity. They waited. Minutes stretched like hours. Below, the slavers argued about tactics. Vicente wanted to send scouts first. The others wanted to rush in. Finally, greed won over caution. They moved toward the canyon entrance in a tight group. Tarak gave the signal, a bird call natural enough that the men below didn't notice. The Apache warriors opened fire as one. The volley was devastating. 3 men dropped immediately. The others scattered, seeking cover, returning fire wildly at an enemy they couldn't see clearly. Jonas picked his targets carefully, remembering his army training. Squeeze, don't pull. Breathe between shots. Don't waste ammunition on impossible angles. He dropped 1 man trying to reach his horse, wounded another who fell behind a boulder. Beside him, Istas's arrows flew with mechanical precision. Every shot found its target. Every target fell. She was magnificent in her element, a warrior doing what she was born to do. The fight should have ended quickly. The slavers were trapped, outgunned, in a killing zone with no way out. But Vicente proved why he was valuable. He spotted the muzzle flashes, identified the ambush positions, and led the 3 surviving men in a desperate charge up the ridge, not toward safety, but toward the ambushers. Sometimes the only way out of an ambush is through it. They come, Honan shouted. The warriors shifted positions, preparing for close combat. This was about to get brutal. Vicente came up the ridge like a mountain lion, fast and deadly. He had a knife in each hand, his face twisted with rage and desperation. He went straight for Jonas, recognizing him, blaming him for everything that had gone wrong. They collided in a tangle of limbs and blades. Vicente was faster, more skilled with knives. But Jonas was heavier, stronger, and he'd been in enough desperate fights to know that rules didn't matter when survival was at stake. They rolled across the rocky ground, each trying to get a blade into the other. Vicente got his knife against Jonas's throat, pressing hard. Jonas headbutted him, felt the man's nose break, used the moment of pain to reverse their positions. An arrow suddenly sprouted from Vicente's shoulder. He screamed, his grip loosening. Jonas looked up to see Istas 20 feet away, another arrow already knocked, her face completely calm. You were losing, she said simply. I had it under control, Jonas lied. Vicente tried to rise, still fighting despite the arrow. Jonas hit him with a rock, hard enough to stun but not kill. Tarak wanted prisoners for questioning. The other slavers weren't as lucky. The Apache warriors showed no mercy to men who'd threatened their children. Within minutes it was over. 3 dead, 3 wounded and captured. 2 fled into the wilderness where they'd likely die anyway. Tarak stood over Vicente, who lay bleeding and stunned. You are Apache blood. You betray your own people for white man's gold. Why? Vicente spat blood. My people abandoned my mother, left her to die. White men raised me, fed me, gave me purpose. Your mother did not abandon you. She was taken, enslaved, sold. Tarak's voice was cold. The white men you serve are the ones who took her. They lied to you, used you, made you weapon against your own blood. Vicente's face went through several emotions. Disbelief, horror, dawning understanding. No, Crow said. Crow lied. Your mother lives. She is in Crow's main camp, held as leverage to control you. Tarak knelt, his massive presence overwhelming. You can die here as traitor, or you can help us free her and destroy the men who enslaved you both. Choose now. Vicente chose redemption. Broken and bleeding, he led them to Crow's main camp 8 miles south. The sun was setting as they approached, painting the canyon walls in shades of blood and gold. The camp was larger than Jonas had expected. 6 substantial tents, a corral with 30 horses, a prison wagon with iron bars, supply depot. Maybe 15 guards visible, possibly more in the tents. But most importantly, prisoners. 20 or more Apache, mostly women and children, locked in the wagon and in crude cages built from scrap wood and chains. Tarak studied the camp from their hidden position. Most of Crow's fighters are dead or scattered. These are guards, not warriors. Soft men who watch prisoners but do not fight battles. Still 15 guns against 12 of us, Honan pointed out. 13, Istas corrected, checking her bow. Jonas looked at her injured leg, still bleeding through fresh bandages, her face pale with exhaustion. You should rest. I should fight. Her tone allowed no argument. These are my people down there. I will not rest while they suffer. Tarak laid out the plan. Simple, direct, brutal. They would split into 3 teams. 1 to free the horses and create chaos. 1 to free the prisoners and arm them. 1 to eliminate the guards quickly and efficiently. Jonas found himself assigned to the prisoner rescue team with Istas and 2 other warriors. Tarak clearly wanted Jonas and Istas together, either because he trusted their partnership or because he wanted to see if it would hold under pressure. They moved in as the last light faded, using the darkness for cover. The guards were lazy, overconfident, their attention on the prisoners rather than on the perimeter. Fatal mistakes. Honan's team struck first, cutting the corral fence and stampeding the horses through the center of camp. Instant chaos. Guards shouting, running for weapons, trying to control panicked animals. Jonas's team moved toward the prison wagon while everyone was distracted. 2 guards stood watch. Jonas shot one from 40 feet, a clean kill. Istas's arrow took the other through the throat before he could shout a warning. They reached the wagon. Inside, faces pressed against the bars. Women, children, 3 captured warriors, all bearing the marks of captivity and abuse. Among them, Jonas saw an older woman who looked eerily like Istas. Same bone structure, same fierce eyes, even beaten and imprisoned. That is Yellow Dawn, Istas whispered. My father's sister. They took her 2 weeks ago. Jonas worked on the lock with his knife while Istas provided cover. The mechanism was crude but solid. He finally gave up on finesse and shot it instead, the lock exploding with a deafening crack. The prisoners poured out. Yellow Dawn embraced Istas fiercely, speaking rapid Apache. Then she grabbed a fallen guard's rifle and joined the fight without hesitation. The warriors did the same. Suddenly the numbers were more even, but then Silas Crow emerged from the command tent, calm despite the chaos around him. He held a young boy by the collar, maybe 12 years old, a rifle pressed to the child's head. Everyone stops, Crow's voice cut through the noise. Or the boy dies. The fighting halted, warriors froze. The boy whimpered but didn't cry, showing courage beyond his years. Crow's eyes found Jonas. You, the mountain man who started all this. Come here, now, or I paint the rocks with this child's brains. Jonas met Istas's eyes. She shook her head slightly, warning him not to do it. But they both knew he had no choice, not with a child's life at stake. Let him go, Jonas said, stepping forward with his hands raised. Take me instead. Oh, I'll take both, Crow smiled with his ruined face. You for what you cost me, him for leverage. Economics, you see. Jonas walked slowly toward Crow, his mind racing. 20 feet, 15, 10. Too far for anyone to shoot Crow before he could kill the boy. Too close for Jonas to rush him successfully. But maybe close enough for something else. When Jonas was 5 feet away, he suddenly dropped to the ground and rolled left. In the same instant, an arrow flew over him, so close he felt the wind of its passage. Istas's arrow hit Crow's gun hand, the same injured hand Jonas had wounded days ago. The rifle fell, the boy twisted free. Jonas surged up, closing the distance before Crow could recover. They collided brutally. Crow drew a knife, slashing at Jonas's face. Jonas caught his wrist, drove his own blade toward Crow's chest. They staggered, locked together, each trying to kill the other. "You've lost," Jonas grated out. "Your men are dead. Your operation is finished." "Network continues," Crow hissed. "Others will come. This doesn't end." "Maybe not, but you do." Jonas drove his knee into Crow's wounded ribs, felt something break. Crow gasped, his grip loosening. Jonas's blade found his chest, punched through bone and into his heart. Crow's eyes went wide with shock. He tried to speak, coughed blood instead, then fell. The camp fell silent except for the groans of wounded and the whimpers of freed children. It was over. Finally over. Jonas stood over Crow's body, breathing hard, his hands shaking. He'd just killed a man in cold blood. Not in combat, not in self-defense, but in execution. The weight of it settled on him like a stone. Istas appeared at his side, limping badly now, her injured leg barely supporting her. "You did what was necessary. He would have killed that boy, would have killed many more if he lived." "I know. Doesn't make it easier." "Good. Day it becomes easy is day you lose your soul." She touched his arm. "Come. We have wounded to tend, prisoners to help. Time for guilt later." She was right. There was work to do. They spent 2 hours securing the camp, tending the wounded, gathering supplies and intelligence. Vicente proved invaluable, showing them where Crow had kept his records. Ledgers with names, locations, buyer contacts. Everything needed to dismantle the entire network. Yellow Dawn found her son among the freed prisoners, a tearful reunion that reminded Jonas why they'd fought. Vicente stood frozen near the prison wagon, staring at an old Apache woman who'd just been freed. She was thin, weathered, but her eyes were his eyes. She whispered his name in Apache, the name she'd given him at birth, not the Spanish name Crow had used. "Madre?" Vicente's voice cracked. The old woman rushed forward, embracing him, speaking rapid Apache through tears. Vicente collapsed into her arms, sobbing like a child, all the hardness of the mercenary stripped away in an instant. Yellow Dawn approached Jonas, translating quietly. "She says Crow told her Vicente died in a raid 10 years ago. Told him she'd abandoned him to white men. Both lies. Crow kept her alive to control Vicente, but never let them see each other. These were people, families torn apart by greed and lies, not commodities to be bought and sold." As dawn approached, they began the journey back to the village. They moved slowly, hampered by wounded and exhausted prisoners. Jonas rode beside Istas, who could barely stay upright, but refused to admit weakness. "You saved my life," he said quietly. "Again. That shot with Crow was impossible. Was necessary, therefore was possible." She managed a tired smile. "We are even now, many times even. I've lost count of who saved who more." "Good. Means we are truly partners, not keeping score, just keeping each other alive." They rode in comfortable silence for a while. Then Ista said, "What you told Dakota yesterday, about not knowing me well enough to promise love, that was honest." Jonas glanced at her. "Yes. I appreciate honesty, but I think maybe we know each other better now than most people who marry after courting for years. How do you figure? We have seen each other at worse moments, bleeding, scared, angry, desperate. Most couples wait years before showing these things. We had no choice. We saw each other truly from the start." Jonas thought about that. "I hadn't considered it that way. Also, we have now bled together, fought together, killed together. In my culture, these are the bonds that matter. Not pretty words or promises made in comfort. Actions and fire. So we skip straight to the hard parts and work backward?" "Yes, much more efficient." Estes' smile was genuine despite her exhaustion. "Besides, I already told you, I am a difficult woman. If you can survive this, you can survive anything." They reached the village by mid-morning. The sight that greeted them was bittersweet. The village had survived the attack with minimal damage and no casualties. But the cost was evident in the destroyed wiki-ups, the blood-stained ground, the exhaustion on every face. Tarak stood at the village entrance, his sister Yellow Dawn beside him. When he saw them approaching, his stoic mask cracked. He rushed to embrace his sister, openly weeping, a display of emotion Jonas hadn't thought the stern chief capable of. Then Tarak turned to Jonas. For a long moment, he simply stared. Then he spoke, his voice thick with emotion. You brought my sister home. You destroyed the enemy camp. You shed blood for my people. He paused, then placed both hands on Jonas's shoulders. Jonas Riddick, you are now fully Apache. Your name is Shyla, brother of shadows, for you move between worlds and bring light to darkness. It was a formal adoption, conducted in front of the entire tribe. Jonas felt the weight of it, the honor and the responsibility both. The celebration that followed was muted by exhaustion, but genuine. Families reunited, heroes honored, dead remembered. It was messy and complicated and human. Huyana insisted on treating the wounded personally. She scolded Istas harshly in Apache, words Jonas didn't need translated to understand. You are greatest warrior I know, but also greatest fool. Must rest or die. Istas finally admitted weakness, allowing herself to be cared for. Jonas stayed by her side, holding her hand as Huyana worked. Spring came to the Arizona territory in a riot of color. Wildflowers carpeted the valleys. The creeks ran high with snowmelt. The world felt renewed, reborn, full of possibility. Jonas stood outside the wickiup he shared with Istas, watching the sun rise over the canyon walls. 6 months. It felt like a lifetime and an eye blink both. The village had changed. New wickiups replaced the damaged ones. Defensive positions improved. But more than that, the people had changed. They'd survived an attack that could have destroyed them. They'd freed their captured family members. They'd struck a blow against the slave trade that had terrorized them for years. And they'd gained Jonas, Shyla, the white man who'd become Apache. It hadn't been easy. Some warriors still didn't trust him. Some women still whispered when he passed. Some children still stared at his pale skin and strange eyes. But most had accepted him, especially after he'd fought beside them, bled beside them, proven his commitment again and again. He'd learned the language, slowly and painfully, learned the customs, learned to hunt Apache style and to track, to read the land through their eyes. He'd become part of the community's fabric, woven in through sweat and blood and stubborn persistence. And he'd learned Istas, her moods, her scars, her dreams, her fears. The way she smiled when she thought no one was watching. The softness beneath her warrior exterior. The vulnerability she showed only to him. They fought often. About tactics, about decisions, about his tendency to be overprotective and her tendency to take stupid risks. But they always came back to each other, always found their way to common ground. She emerged from the wickiup behind him, moving with her old grace now that her leg had fully healed. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, resting her head against his back. You are thinking too much, she said. How do you know? You always stand like this when you are thinking, like stone, very still. She moved to stand beside him. What thoughts today? Jonas was quiet for a moment. I was thinking about how 6 months ago I wasn't on a mountain, convinced I'd die that way. And now you have wife who argues with you constantly, tribe who expects you to hunt and fight and lead, and no peace or quiet ever. Yeah, Jonas smiled. It's exhausting and frustrating and complicated. But I'm alive, really alive, for the first time in 6 years. Istas studied his face. You have regrets? No, you? Every day. At his startled look, she laughed. I regret that I did not meet you sooner, that we wasted years when we could have been together, that I rejected so many foolish men before finding the one smart enough to match me. Jonas pulled her close. I wouldn't change anything, even the hard parts. They led us here. They stood together, watching the village come to life. Children playing, women tending fires, men preparing for the day's hunt. Normal life, the kind worth fighting for. Jonas, Istas said softly. Shyla, I have something to tell you. He turned to look at her, caught by the tone of her voice. Serious but not sad, important but not frightening. What is it? She took his hand and placed it on her belly. Flat still, no visible change. But Jonas understood immediately. You're pregnant. Yes, Huyana confirmed yesterday. Baby comes in autumn when leaves turn gold. She searched his face anxiously. Are you happy? Scared? Angry? Jonas didn't answer with words. He kissed her instead, pouring everything he felt into that kiss. Joy and terror and hope and love, all mixed together in a complicated tangle of emotions. When they finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. All of those things, all at once, Ekbam. Good answer. Istas smiled. I am all those things too. Boy or girl, what do you hope for? Does not matter. They will be warrior like mother, wise like father, stubborn like both of us. That child does not stand a chance. Jonas laughed, really laughed, the sound echoing across the canyon. No, they don't. They sat on the bench outside their wickiup, his arm around her shoulders, her hand on his knee. Comfortable silence between them, the kind that came from truly knowing another person. Tell me something, Jonas said. That first day, in the trap, did you really think about killing me? Yes, for about 2 seconds. Then I saw your eyes, saw you were not like other white men I had met, saw something, broken but trying to heal, and I thought, this man understands pain. Maybe he can understand me. Did I? Understand you? You are still learning, will take many years, maybe whole lifetime. She squeezed his hand. But yes, you understand the important parts. You see me as warrior and woman both. Not one or the other. Both. That's all I want. To be seen truly. To see you truly. To build something real. Then we do this together. Raise our child. Protect our people. Grow old arguing and fighting and loving. Istas tilted her head to look at him. You said once you were done running. Still true? Jonas thought about Rebecca and Lily, their blessing in his vision, about the 6 years of isolation and grief, about the bear trap that had caught him and changed everything, about choosing to stay again and again, even when it was hard. Still true, I'm done running from anything, from the past, from the future, from life itself. Whatever comes, we face it together. Good, because I do not run either. We stand, we fight, we live. They sat together as the sun climbed higher, painting the canyon in shades of gold and red. Behind them, the village bustled with life. In front of them, the future stretched out, unknown and unknowable. But Jonas Riddick, who'd come to these mountains to die slowly, had learned something in the past 6 months. Something about traps and choices and the difference between surviving and living. Sometimes the trap that catches you is exactly where you're meant to be. Sometimes running away is the coward's choice, and staying is the brave one. Sometimes the hardest thing you can do is open yourself to love again after loss. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, a bear trap and an Apache warrior and a chief's demand can save your life in ways you never expected. He touched his ribs absently, feeling the scar there. The one from that slaver's knife in the cave, the wound Istis had stitched closed with her own hands even though she could barely stand. Their first fight together where they'd saved each other's lives. The scar that would last his whole life, a permanent reminder of the day everything changed. Istas noticed the gesture. Your scar. You touch it often. Does it hurt? No, just remembering. Good memories or bad? Jonas thought about that, about the way, the fight, the blood, the fear, about choosing to stay instead of run. About waking up every morning next to a woman who challenged him and loved him and saw him truly. Good memories, he said, the best. She smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. Then the scar was worth it. Yeah, it was. They sat together, watching their future take shape in the form of a child not yet born, a village not yet fully rebuilt, a life not yet fully lived but full of promise nonetheless. And Jonas Riddick, who'd spent 6 years alone on a mountain waiting to die, finally understood what it meant to be alive. Not surviving, not enduring, but truly, completely, messily alive. It had taken a bear trap, an Apache warrior, a forced marriage, and a war to teach him. But some lessons are worth the cost. All of them. 60 years later, 1938. The old man opened his eyes, returning from memory to the present. Thomas sat beside him on the porch, eyes wide, completely absorbed in the story. That's how you met great-grandma? Thomas breathed. That's how. Jonas touched his scar again, the gesture automatic after all these years. That baby your grandmother. We named her Lily, after my first daughter. Istis insisted. Said old Lily would want new Lily to carry her spirit. And great-grandma, is she still? Come. Jonas stood slowly, his 97-year-old body protesting but obeying. I'll show you. They walked around the ranch house to the garden. An old woman knelt among the plants, her silver hair still braided in the traditional Apache way. Despite her age, she moved with purpose, tending her herbs with practiced hands. She looked up at their approach, her dark eyes still sharp. Husband, you telling boy the trap story again? He asked about my scar. Ista stood with effort, brushing dirt from her hands. Your grandfather makes it sound very heroic. Truth is, we were both fools who got lucky. Lucky I found you, Jonas said. Lucky I didn't kill you that first day. But she smiled, moving to his side with the ease of 60 years of partnership. Thomas stared at them, seeing the love there, the comfortable familiarity, the partnership that had survived decades. 60 years, Jonas said, answering the unasked question. 3 children, 12 grandchildren, 4 great-grandchildren so far. And still she argues with me every day. And you still need arguing with, Istis replied. You make bad decisions without me. Thomas laughed. They smiled at each other, these 2 old warriors who'd fought their way to love and never stopped fighting for it. The trap, Thomas said. Was it worth it? Everything that came after? Jonas looked at Istis. She looked back. And without words, they answered together, their expressions saying what words couldn't quite capture. Worth it didn't begin to cover what they'd built from that desperate day in the canyon, the life they'd created, the family they'd raised, the love they'd fought for and earned and kept alive through decades of joy and hardship both. Yeah, Jonas said simply. It was worth it. All of it. Estes took his hand, her fingers still strong despite age. The trap caught you, husband, but you chose to stay. That is difference. Trap does not matter. Choice matters. They stood together in the New Mexico evening, these 2 old warriors, surrounded by the life they'd built and the love they had earned. And Jonas Riddick, who'd once gone to the mountains to die slowly, smiled and knew with absolute certainty that he'd made the right choice. All those years ago, in a canyon in Arizona, when a bear trap and an Apache woman and a chief's ultimatum had given him one last chance at life. He'd chosen to stay, and that choice had made all the difference.